So kama kuna kitu nataka watu waelewe is that a pastor's kid is a kid like any other kid. Akuwe mtoto wa mwalimu, akuwe mtoto wa mama mboga, akuwe mtoto wa daktari, sisi wote ni watoto. Ushaiona after shule kumestrikiwa watu waambiwa waandike list ya wale watu wenye walifanya strike. The ringleaders were strike. So let me tell you, niko form 1. It's second time. Come on, no. Alafu list inaandikwa number 1, number 2. Grace Maingi, mtoto wa bishop. Growing up as a pastor's kid, fondly known as PKs, is complicated. It's showing up even when you still don't know who you are. It's people expecting you to be perfect. It's the world expecting the spotlight to always be on you. It's just interesting. Funny enough, I tell everyone who meets me, because I am a pastor's kid, I tell everyone who meets me that this is a life I didn't choose. I walked right into it. And it's a complicated, interesting, imperfect journey, I'd say. So this podcast is for those who feel invisible. It's for the ones who grew up in church but felt outside of it most of the time. It's for the ones whose questions they were never allowed to ask. It's for us who hid the wounds from the church and from the public. It's for us who felt like we had to show up every single day of the week looking perfect when we were nowhere even near perfection. Welcome to Through the Ashes, the podcast where we tell you the quiet parts out loud. This is the podcast where we get to be real, we get to be authentic, we get to let you into our lives, and we get to tell you the drama, the in-between, the behind the scenes zenye amuonangi, zile zenye tulikuwa tunajificha, tunajifanya tumegonjeka, ndio tusishow up church hiyo siku kukanaka midweek hivi. Mimi kwanza, so many times I had to fake sick, to fake fake sick, or to fake what? Yeah, call it that way. But anyway, a lot of times I had to fake it that I was sick, ndo nisi show up in midweek services. But that's not just what we're going to tell you. We will be telling you the authentic life of a pastor's kid. Nothing unfiltered. My name is Grace Maingi, and from now on, that's going to be Gresham. And I am a PK. By now, you ought to have known what a PK is, surely. A PK is a pastor's kid. Those of us that grew in the church, grew up surrounded by scriptures, surrounded by the sermons, surrounded by church, surrounded by ministry, name it. Those of us that have been in ministry know that. And those of us that have not, I am going to be introducing you to this kind of life where we grew up surrounded by everything church related. And so therefore, life growing up, personally for me, life growing up was surrounded by a lot of perfection. I was expected to show up. I was expected to be okay even when I'm not okay. I was expected to show up every single day at the optimum of 100. And I can tell you the truth, not every day I was at 100. There are days I was at 90. There are days I was at 20. There are days I was almost at 0. And therefore, this podcast was born out of that space. The space where there was the messy healing, the wounds that we were never allowed to talk about, the stories behind the scenes that we never brought to church. Some of us have gone through so much that we kept hiding from the church because we felt like, should we talk about it? It will change your perspective of us, the perspective you created for us, not the perspective that God actually had for us. And so this podcast is born out of the need to create a space where pastors' kids and those that love them can freely talk about their journey, can freely talk about the mess, can freely talk about the wounds, can freely talk about their faith and where they are at right now. This is the space where we will talk about everything in an unfiltered way, the raw truth. Hapa tutawaletea kile izile udaku za huko ndani. Mnaona zile vitu za mjai ona huko kwa pulpit. trust you me, we are going to be giving you nothing short of that. So you want to buckle up your seats, you want to stay with us, because it's bound to be an amazing roller coaster journey. So what should you expect from this podcast? We are going to explore what it means to grow up in ministry and heal from it. We're also going to explore different thematic areas. One, the unspoken pressures to be perfect. Hey, kwanza hiyo ni kama iko kwa top of the list, iko hapa, it's number 1, because I don't know why people imagine, and this is a mystery, rather this is a myth that I would love to majorly deconstruct in this podcast, whereby people think that ministry kids, pastors' kids, ministers and pastors all together ought to be perfect. We are human. Hello, wake up from your perfection dream. We are human. We will mess up. We have messed up. We are not okay. We are normal children. Hey, bana, by the way, kwanza, kama kuna kitu naweza taka people wa hell. Wait, wow! Where my ancestors have come for me. So kama kuna kitu naweza taka watu waelewe is that a pastor's kid is a kid like any other kid. Akuwe mtoto wa mwalimu, akuwe mtoto wa mama mboga, akuwe mtoto wa daktari, sisi wote ni watoto. Hakuna mahali penye imeandikwa juu mimi ni PK ati mimi sasa nafaa kuwa ka perfect small human god. I am a child. Allow me to be a child. So one of the areas we are going to be deconstructing heavily is the unspoken pressure to be perfect. 2, we are going to talk about doubts, deconstruction, and spiritual confusion. A lot of times we've found ourselves in a lot of quagmire situations. We have been confused. We have been faced by life's challenges. We have been faced by life's choices. I mean, the same way you're confused about if you should date that guy is the same way pia mimi nilikuwa confused kama ni date Charlie X ama Charlie Y. So why are you making it look like because I'm a pastor's kid if I kuwa confused? I mean, hello, there are times I didn't want to go to church. There are times I didn't know what being in church meant. There are times I didn't know what being born again meant. And especially that part, personally, that part, I had a very big problem with it. Despite being in church where I had Bwana Hasifiwe every day, and then you know me, I was raised by those parents, especially my parents are road school, because I was raised by those parents wenye ushuhuda inaanza hapa kutoka hapa mpaka Kimondo. Lazima uambiwe Bwana Hasifiwe, nimeokoka Yesu ni Bwana. Alafu there is this salamu, those old guys used to salimiana. Bwana Hasifiwe dada. It's that one. Mtu anakusalimia alafu anakufanyia hivi. Then they're telling you, oh Bwana asifiwe dada, nimeokoka Yesu ni Bwana ndani ya maisha yangu, amenipa nguvu ya kusonga na hii imani. Unajua, alafu kwanza sasa ikue the worst part ni Mkamba anakupea hiyo ushuhuda. Alafu anakupea na Kikamba. Atakwambia vile ng'ombe zake zinaendelea vizuri, mbuzi zake zinaendelea vizuri, mvua imenyesha na mahindi zimekaa. Like I mean, we are going to be demystifying all that. The confusion, the not understanding what faith means despite hearing church every day, the not understanding what praying means despite hearing prayer every single day. That's some of the things we're going to talk about. We will be talking about finding your identity outside your family, outside of your family calling. Yeah, we're going to be talking about what is it to find your own self outside your family's calling. You know, my dad is a bishop. Have I been called to be a bishop? My mother is a reverend. Have I been called to be a reverend? My whoever is in ministry. But there are PKs who God has not called into ministry by the way, and it is fine. But I don't know why we have the pressure because our parents are in ministry. We automatically ought to be in ministry. By the way, I'm one of the people who never wanted to be in ministry. I'm in the media. That's where the Lord called me to be at. And it's like calling me, come in and vrota inaniambia grace. Come. But then again, we will be talking about, is it ni must ukue pastor, juu babako ni pastor? Ni must you follow your family's calling? That's one of the things we'll talk about. We will talk about mental health in ministry families. Hey, that's a whole issue. That's an entire ball game. Because I mean, nimewambia kitu moja yenye tuta deconstruct is that venye wewe ni human being, ndio pia PK ni human being, na ndio pia pastor ni human being. So kama unafesiwa na depression, pia sisi tuko na depression by the way. Kama unafesiwa na mental health challenges, low self-esteem, low self-worth, we've also gone through those phases, and therefore we will be talking about mental health in ministry families. We will be talking, one of the things that are very close to my heart that we are going to be talking about is healing. Church hurt and healing. I have seen people that have hurt my parents terribly, and I am not sure how I navigated through those spaces. Mtu alilala kwetu, tukaamshwa by the way, akapewa kitanda ndio tulale kwa floor. Juni mshirika alikuja kwetu akiwa na issues, and then the next minute they are the ones bad mouthing my parents, they're the ones hurting my parents. And how do we navigate through some of those things? Because we have gone through those things where we have seen people our parents labored so much for turn behind their backs and stab them through the same empowerment they gave them. So we are going to be talking about healing. What is it like to be hurt in church? What is it like to see your parents hurt in church? What is it like to heal from the church hurt? Because a lot of us have not been able to bounce back from church hurt. We will talk about double standards. We ni kama naona nikaa nafikiwa sana. Is it really personal? But let me tell you something, we will talk about double standards. Sasa hapo kwa double standards, wacha nifanye hivi kama mtu mwingine. I'm not going to say anything. We'll talk about loneliness and isolation. This life can get really lonely. Take it from me, it can get really lonely. There's a time I showed up in church for almost 2 years without a friend in church. And I was very faithful going to church, but I felt very lonely and isolated because I felt like either watu wanakuwa marafiki zangu wanataka kuja kufuata udaku ndio waende waniseme kwa maadhe or something. But yeah, it can get very lonely. We'll talk about dating, purity and relationships as a PK. Pia sisi tumekapitia. Hey, that was for the kukapitia part. Tumekapitia by the way. Hey, sasa sijui tumesema ndio ile space ya we are going to be very honest. And so in our honesty, we will tell you where we've made mistakes. I'll tell you my mistakes. The fellow guests that will come here will tell you their mistakes. So that you get to learn from us. You get to we get to change notes, because sometimes it's not even learning from us, but it's comparing notes. But yeah, we'll talk about purity, we'll talk about relationships, we'll talk about dating, what that looks like. We will talk about the ministry burden in the family. By the way, wacha nikwambie kuna tema tu kukuwa na do lakini mzae bado ako kanisani, ile pesa kidogo tuko nayo nyumbani jamani amepeleka kanisani. The little that we had in the house, he's taken it to the church. Kwa sababu gani? He has had God. So many like, which God have you had that you're taking the money you're supposed to be paying school fees for to church? But that's some of the things. Those were our realities. Me, I remember my dad, some time back, he gave out money that was meant to pay. I'll give you that story one day. But he gave money that was meant to pay my sister's school fee to the church. And akutuambia, he told us the story later. But then I'm just imagining, how do you just wake up one day alafu unasema God amekwambia upeni pesa tulikuwa tukule kesho kwa church? Those are the realities of a PK, and those are some of the things that we are going to be talking about. The ministry burden of the family. We'll talk about what faith looks like after the fire, because we go through the fire. And we will talk about what does it mean to come out through the ashes, because we go through the fire, and then once we go through the fire, we have to come out on the other side through the ashes. Some of these episodes will feature guests who are fellow PKs, some of us who have some of us who have landed safely through the other side, those that are still finding themselves, those that are in between the mess, even those who've walked away. Yeah, there are some of us that felt like, nah, this kind of life, not for me, man, I'm out of it. But so we'll talk to some of those. But at the core of it, we are all PKs. We'll talk to counselors, we'll talk to faith leaders, we'll talk to other people, some episodes will feature reflections such as this one. I'll give stories, I'll talk about myself. So it's going to be a cocktail, a mixture of very many things. We will give you stories. It won't just be about church bashing. We will tell you the realities of being a PK. We will tell you the realities of growing up in ministry. We will tell you what life looks like on this side of the world. We will tell you what it feels like to be behind the pulpit. So you might be seated there wondering, hii podcast tu ni ya watoto wa pastor peke yao or pastors and all? No, got some good news for you. This podcast is for you if you've ever felt like your childhood belonged to the church more than it belongs to you. Some of us felt like mimi akibedheni nilikuwa na feeling kama maisha yangu iko tu church. We had to show up the first in church and leave the last in church. Sisi ndo tulikuwa ushers. So whether people show up or not, our life belonged to the church. So you've smiled on Sunday while still falling apart inside. This podcast is for you. Those of us that have showed up in church smiling and looking nice and wearing this nice beautiful fascinator, lakini unajua uko ndani kina kuramba Pro Max. This podcast is for you. You've questioned God but didn't feel safe to say it out loud. Yeah, there are moments we found ourselves questioning God. Do you exist? What do you say about ni wewe ndio ulisema hii, by the way? Do not. Yeah, is it you who said this? If you found yourself in that space, this podcast is for you. If you've had to unlearn parts of your faith to find what's real. If you've had to unlearn parts of your faith to find what's real, this podcast is for you. Whether you're still in church, far from it, or somewhere in between, this space is for you. So other than what I have talked about, what should you expect in the upcoming episodes? You can expect honest conversations. I have told you, conversations that are not filtered. You can expect zero judgment. Hapa ni hile party ya will listen. Cousins, and don't judge. You can expect that there is a safe space to process the things we were told. You can expect a space to process the things we were told not to talk about. Mimi kwanza niko na mingi sana nilikuwa naambiwa hizo vitu uongeangi, hizo usemangi, don't say that, don't do that, don't. So you can expect that we are going to process those things that we were told not to talk about. You can expect that we will talk about the guilt of not living up to the expectations. Yes, a lot of times we didn't live up to expectations. I remember one time I was expelled from high school as a Form 1 student. Nimeenda Form 1, mimi ndo huyo nimeingia huko kidogo kidogo, watu wamestrike, kidogo kidogo watu wakiandika list ya ring leaders wa strike. Grace Maingi jina yake ni number 2 kwa hiyo list. As a mono, but then nilikuwa mono, and I can tell you I schooled in 3 different high schools. Nilienda 3 different high schools, just so you know. So I didn't live up to expectation, and there was guilt of not living up to expectations. You can expect we will talk about how do you set boundaries with ministry families. This is where sisi wenye tuko on this side of the life where we are PKs and we are pastors, how do we set boundaries with the church? How do we know that this is church time, this is family time, this is ministry time, this is evangelism time, this is my kids time, this is me time? And also you on the other side, who's not a PK, who's not a pastor, who's not a minister, how do you also set boundaries with the ministry families? Because there are people when you have boundaries with families, people that will call their pastor left, right, center. Pastor unampigia simu usiku saa 5 unataka kuombe. I mean, how do you also as mshirika set boundaries with the pastor? Because we have people like that. There's a clip I watched a while back, a clip of some lady pastor from Tanzania who was saying, and you know what Tanzania na kile Kiswahili cha kwao wanasema, mwanadada basi ukipigia mchungaji wako waenda kwake usiku wa manane wataka kuombe, alafu minisketi ni ile fupi watakaje? So how do you set boundaries as a mshirika with your pastor? And also how do we pastors' wives, PKs set boundaries with the washirika. We will talk about what happens when a PK becomes a parent. We will all become parents the same way our parents became parents. We have agreed, one thing we have agreed in this podcast is that some of us will end up in ministry. Some will not. Some have walked away from church. But at the core of it, we are still PKs. So how do we parent our children in the ways of the Lord? Necessarily not forcing them to follow after our footsteps. Because we have parents who want their children to take up after them, even when they don't have calling for ministry. So how do you parent as a PK? And finally, one of the things I am very keen and very passionate to do in this podcast is to be able to tell stories of resilience, humor, and healing. Healing ministry is very dear to me. It's very dear to my heart. And sijakwambia kuja hapa nikuambia ukiwa na kizunguzungu na kifafa, please. Okay, tutakuombea bado, but yeah, I know my lane, and my lane is to talk about emotional healing. And therefore, since that's something that's very dear to me, we will talk about stories of resilience, we will talk about stories of humor, we will talk about stories of healing. This is not about bashing the church, it's about naming the heart and honoring the humanity. So finally, to all the PKs out there carrying silence, hey, wacha niwaambie ni kama naambia director wangu anilete tissues hapa, because it's about to get real. Yeah. Ni kama tutaanza kulia huku. Okay, so but anyway, to all the PKs who are carrying silent stories, I see you, I hear you, I am you, was you, still is you. Yeah, your voice matters, your healing matters, and you're not alone. I can tell you that for a fact. If anything in this episode resonated, I'd love for you to subscribe, like, comment, and share with someone. And maybe even reach out. If you're a PK out there and you have a story that you would want to tell to the world, please reach out. We will be featuring you in one of our subsequent episodes, and we will be glad to hear those stories unfiltered. And if you're not a PK and you know someone, or you know a PK you'd love featured on these episodes, we will be glad to host them. We've spent a long time trying to look put out together, trying to look perfect, trying to look amazing, trying to look who we are not. And it's time to speak about it. This is the place where we fall apart and maybe, just maybe, start rebuilding from the ashes. Catch you in the next episode. Yours truly, Rasha.